idea that there is that kind of morality in terms of like a woman's right to choose, but you can interpret it through all of these caveats that sometimes women's autonomy is not as important, because it's the same situation where you have that kind of dilemma between the two moralities, like and the importance. But it says thou shalt not kill. I don't think there's any other
because it is situated. The text itself is situated within a whole nest of laws which caveat that. The problem, in my view, with the liberal argument is you've not given me a principle which is universally applicable, which all liberals can agree on when it comes to fundamental things like life itself, because you disagree with people like Joe Biden and others who believe it's a woman's right to choose what she does with her body up to birth. You disagree with them, but they're both liberal. You're all liberals. So there's no consistent liberal principle that actually works. That's my argument.
Because the liberal approach to this comes from consensus and different arguments, and while there is never going to be a complete 100% consensus, there is going to be an outcome which is currently optimal, or it seems currently optimal. And through trial and error and argument and discussion, we can come closer to the most optimal argument to the majority of people. Because even if you have that kind of like approach in terms of like Christian morality of like thou shalt not kill, those caveats might not work for some other party for which they're subjected. So
the liberalism argues for moral autonomy. You have a right to decide as you wish, as long as my fist doesn't approach your nose, as you put it earlier on. But on the other hand, there are liberals who uphold the right to human life as a fundamental principle of liberalism, respecting life. How do you reconcile these two principles?
This is my liberal reconciliation, is that I have arguments about it. Like, so something like there is a clash between those two.
Yeah.
We have to come against this. Like, where is actually like human life begin? Where does it begin?
Yeah.
I can have that conversation with other liberals.
What's the liberal view on when human life begins?
You can ask a liberal where they think it begins.
Well, I'm asking you.
Me?
Yeah.
To me, a human life begins where the child, or actually using the word child is probably not good. The embryo, if you take it out the mother, it is able to live without support of another organism.
Why you did biochemistry?
I did do biochemistry, yes.
In terms of the biochemistry, the physiology of that unborn baby, what suddenly miraculously changes when that baby's outside of the womb? I don't see the difference.
In terms of what changes?
Yeah. I mean, when is a baby not a baby? I mean, it seems to me identical in terms of its biochemistry, its DNA, its physiology, whether it's in the womb or not in the womb at that stage. I don't see the difference.
In terms of DNA, DNA is constant. I mean, it's not really constant because there's always point mutations, but it's good to look at organisms in terms of point of development, because developmentally you change. I mean, you gain different...
Say it's 6 months. So the same baby at 6 months, in the womb, outside of the womb. You're saying if it can't survive outside of the womb, it's not a baby.
It's not a human life we should consider as important.
No. I'm talking about its ontological status.
I mean, if you take out a 6-month embryo, it would not survive.
No, that's not my question. I'm talking about its ontological status.
Ontological status.
Well, what is it? Is it a dolphin? Is it a chihuahua? What is it?
It is a 6-month-old embryo.
Which is a human being, yeah?
Is it?
Okay. Well, if we develop technology tomorrow, maybe it exists today. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. That embryo, that 6-month-old child, can be taken out of the womb and supported and sustained viably. Would it suddenly become a human being for you?
Well, that is a very, very good question, and I don't have the answer to that yet. Because
no, theoretically.
Huh?
Theoretically.
Theoretically. Oh, I don't know. You put me on the spot. I haven't really thought about it. But I think what it would do is open up avenues to preserving life like that. In terms of whether you should force the woman to carry it.
No. I'm talking about its status. I'm not talking about anyone else at this stage. You see, it seems to me arbitrary. This is my key objection to your argument. It's entirely arbitrary, your principle. It becomes human when it becomes viable outside of the womb. So then I give an example where it can become viable, albeit in theory, and you say, I don't know what to say about that. But your own principle says that it should be human, because if it can survive, therefore it's human.
Because the whole argument about abortion is semantics of what is a human being. Because it is impossible to have a consensus of when something is actually human, because different people perceive life as different things. There is a
But you gave an example of 6 months.
because that is my argument. That is something that I feel
Right.
kind of has some form of logic.
So the argument is not a very strong argument, given that no one can agree on when human life begins. Then
I don't think that makes it a weak argument. I think it makes my argument, and through common understanding and through common conversation, we can come to an agreement that favors a group or us as a society that we think is right to do.
but people don't agree when it's all right. You look at the United States, the cultural wars, Democrats and Republicans, they really don't agree at all. And they can all be liberal, by the way. Some could say a right to life is a liberal principle respecting human freedom and human dignity. Others would say it's a woman's body. It seems to me these are so fundamentally different paradigms of what it is to be human. They are irreconcilable, and certainly liberalism can't adjudicate. But you can't just say, when does life begin? Because the other guy could say, look, it's all about a woman's right. It's her body. It's her right to do with whatever she likes.
And then we can come and agree to a consensus, because I don't think there is a single...
How could you come to a consensus?
I mean, or an agreement that, like, the thing is, when we talk about, like, two views, let's say there's two ends of a stick, I don't think there is almost any kind of argument where we can come to 100% consensus within everyone in the world.
I'm just looking for a principle or a way, at least in principle, of reconciling what strike me as irreconcilable positions.
Because I think you don't have this ultimatism in liberalism.
You have what?
In terms of, there is not this ultimate truth in liberalism.
I thought there was freedom. I thought you told me earlier.
Yeah, freedom, but that's... I mean,
That's not ultimate truth then.
in terms of like opinions and things that come out of freedom, like what is actually freedom? We believe in this.
So it's a pretty empty principle then. If you can't actually apply it in the real world to fundamental matters of human life, abortion, because people can't agree using liberal principles, then it really is a fairly useless principle, isn't it? Really.
I mean, agree that we want to be able to live lives where we make our own choices, and then we have conversation and arguments. What is actually freedom of choice, and where is the actual like fist hitting the nose, and when isn't it hitting the nose? So the idea of freedom is a very big term, and through consensus we can actually come close to like what is freedom right
But
now.
in America, there's no consensus on this very issue. In the land of the free, whose constitution is based on liberal principles, Enlightenment, liberty, John Locke, Rousseau, etc. These are liberal philosophers, and people still can't get to this consensus, this magical consensus that you say is a solution to this disagreement. I give you a living experiment in the United States that's not working.
And I can tell you that through liberalism, over time, I would argue that through these liberal principles, overall, people have more choices to make, and just in general, on the curve, like if you look at the line, in terms of like how much freedoms people have, it is increasing through people having these conversations of how a society should be run based on the principles of freedom. So,
I'm saying it's just not worked.
it's not worth
An example is the United States, where people who share the same overarching narrative as Americans are at cultural or even civil war over these issues because they cannot agree, even though they have the same overarching principle that you praise so much. So I'm saying it has failed. I mean, you need a different basis for morality.
I mean, and just in terms of like, if you want to talk about the Civil War, there was a question about...
I'm talking about a new civil war. Some people say that America might be... I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they're talking in that language. Some people are.
In terms of the Civil War...
Not the old one, no.
The argument there was like, who actually has the right to freedom?
Yeah.
Like, who is a human? So some people would say like, slavery was okay, they weren't worth freedom, humans can't be property. And over time, that was removed, the idea, and they decided that actually everything that is a human, they had a consensus that every person, regardless of the race...
I agree with you. There's agreement on that now. But the liberalism is not only facing that dilemma; it's facing other dilemmas, which it seems to have failed to reach any consensus at all on the examples we've been discussing.
These arguments, for now, yes, but over time...
But how many years? I mean, at what point can you predict? So is it going to happen in 5 years, 100 years?
I'm not Nostradamus.
No, but it may never happen.
I mean, it may or may not. But if you look at the terms of like liberal trends, over time, problems do get solved, and the freedom is solved.
So,
or at least they become better. Maybe not solved, but they become better. I would say
the abortion issue, and there are others like euthanasia and others are not being solved. That they are festering away.
Not solved yet, but it is.
So your great hope, the liberalism's great hope, is in the future
Yeah, because over time, no, but we have seen that these problems eventually do become.
Some do, but not all of them.
Not all of them, but like
It's not a magic pill that solves every problem, I would argue.
we have seen that over time, step by step, these solutions do get fixed.
I would say liberalism, step by step, makes things worse over time. For example, it leads to family breakdown because it facilitates divorce, it facilitates abortion, it facilitates what some people call fornication and immorality. It leads to the breakdown of the family unit, which is the fundamental unit of the social order, in the name of freedom. But men, for example, have more freedom than women because they can impregnate as many women as they like. Women have to bear the consequence. The whole thing is not, the whole liberal experiment, I would argue, has led to the breakdown of the social order in the West.
I mean, me and my girlfriend are incredibly liberal. Both of us have body counts of, north of 50, and we're having a great relationship. So I just...
So your unique experience is meant to generalize to the whole society?
I mean, I didn't say that, but I say it happened. And I think in terms of human relationships...
But let's look at abortion rates since 1960, since abortion was liberalised.
Yes.
Let's look at divorce rates since they happened. Let's look around at the incidence of STD, sexually transmitted diseases, amongst the young. These are off the charts because of liberal principles that say you can do what you want as long as my fist doesn't reach the end of your nose. But what about other things reaching other things? Without, I mean...
Can you have solutions if you want to have less...
What is the liberal solution to sexually transmitted diseases thanks to the breakdown of the family because of liberalism?
The solution to STDs is increase education through the use of condoms.
But it hasn't worked, has it?
It has.
But it's increasing. But children have been educated in condoms and sex education in schools for years. And yet, gonorrhea and other sexual diseases are becoming, and syphilis and all sorts of very nasty diseases are becoming even more widespread.
They are becoming...
Are you saying there's no relationship between liberalism and this widespread diseases?
I would make an argument because a disease like HIV has been solved through education of protected sex and responsibility.
No,
because that is a very important case.
No,
something like HIV.
but the medicine has rendered it no longer a fatal disease, but presumably gay men are still sleeping around like they always were.
They were, but in terms of the transmission of HIV, the rates of new HIV cases has significantly gone down.
Because of medical intervention, yeah.
Not only medical intervention. Well, one of them is.
Yeah, they're taking a pill or whatever.
I mean, there is PrEP and other things, but people are more responsible now in terms of sex.
Really?
Yeah, they are.
By taking a pill every day?
Not only pill, but using condoms, pills.
Yeah, and condoms are infallible, they always were.
Not infallible, but I think you have this understanding of it's an all or nothing principle, whereas I'm thinking of
we've never had as much sex education, we've never had as much liberalism, we've never had as much freedom, as you call it, and we've never had so much disease and infertility in men, I don't know about women, and family breakdown, divorce, and so on. It seems to me that the more we have of your liberal freedom, the more it harms and undermines human happiness and human well-being and human flourishing in society.
But in terms of divorce, why is an increased rate of divorce a bad thing? People are able to leave the relationships where they are unhappy.
Are you serious? Why is it a bad thing?
Yeah.
Well, I can remember my parents got divorced when I was 14, 15. I didn't have a good time at all. The divorce hurt me bad. And there are a lot of wounded children out there because the parents gave up after 5 years or 10 years and left their kids alone with a single parent who is impoverished because... do you not know any about this? This is awful.
I know this
is awful.
It is awful. But I would argue that...
This is your liberal experiment come true.
Because I would argue that having a relationship and then two parents who hate each other and don't want to be together is more harmful because the rates of domestic abuse in failed marriages is significantly higher than in single parent households. Like having an abusive family is worse than having a single parent.
But my answer would be that parents just don't... Not everything is just abusive, by the way. People can sometimes simply go after another partner, for example. They can prefer a younger model or whatever. There could be all sorts of reasons why people split up. Because of the disposability of relationships. They are more ephemeral now than they ever were in the past. But when you have children and when you have who need stability and love and a home that's not going to just break apart when the father wants to whatever, liberalism provides an easy way out for men to get what they want. And it's usually the women who suffer under liberalism because they're the ones having to carry the can, to keep the child. They're the ones that get custody of the children normally.
I would argue that through having that access to divorce, women are not trapped in marriages they don't want to be because they have a child.
Right.
And so a lot of families still stay together for the kids, but in many cases,
Increasingly not so. Not increasingly not so.
And it's up to the choices of the two people whether they want to stay in that relationship, and they have to make that choice and through that responsibility, and it's up to them to make their own choices.
I think in our disposable society, easy divorce leads to children being damaged mentally and physically sometimes. This is part of the poison, the toxic fruit of liberal ideology, which is why a more conservative response, we see this happening, the reaction against liberalism in the world, not just in the States, but throughout Europe and the rest of the world. We've seen the consequences of liberalism. It leads to societal breakdown and harm and disease and unhappiness, depression, mental illness. These are all the fruits of kind of materialism and liberalism.
Do you have any proof of that? No, but
Since the 1960s, since these laws have changed, we've seen an exponential rise in all of these phenomena. There is a cause and effect between the liberal social experiments of the 60s and the world we live in today.
But
Which is
there's
why
also
some
been-
countries like Poland and other countries do not, I don't know about Ukraine, reject this because they see the harm that the Western Europe and parts of the United States have inflicted on their populations because of this untrammeled liberalism.
I would significantly disagree with that because there's many censuses around the countries that became liberal after the fall of the Soviet Union who have become liberalized and joined the West.
You think Russia is a liberal country?
No, I'm saying that the countries that have joined the West and became liberalized after the fall of the Soviet Union, the censuses and the data in terms of prosperity has gone up because abundance and those freedoms make the people of those countries happy.
I will grant you material prosperity, but we're talking here about family breakdown and morality and disease and so on. That I'm not talking about having an extra car or having an extra holiday. I'm talking about families, quality of life, things that really matter.
I mean,
Yeah.
but under this liberal society that you are against,
Yeah.
people have both the chance to live a life where you describe, where you can be very conservative, stay together for the kids, because nobody's stopping them. But they can also have the possibility of living the life they want through divorce or have promiscuous sex. And have this. They're allowed to do it. And maybe
That's
that
the
makes
problem.
them-
That's the problem.
Well, why is that the problem?
Because sorry.
Why do you wanna do it?
Because it leads to disease, breakdown, unhappiness, mental illness, damaged children, and all of those things. I mean, the evidence around, that's why many countries in the world look at Western Europe and parts of America in horror and say, we're not going to. That's why Eastern Europe doesn't want to follow Western Europe in this regard. You're saying about economics, yeah, I grant you that. But I'm talking here about culture, about ethics, about how to live lives.
I mean, I would completely disagree. In terms of
Go.
us Ukrainians, we are fighting for those Western European values. We want to be like the West. We want to join the EU. We have,
People may not realize you are Ukrainian, by the way.
I am Ukrainian.
He's Ukrainian.
Yeah, I'm Ukrainian. Proudly so. Slavo-Ukrainian.
He's bilingual,
I am actually more than that. But
trilingual.
trilingual, yeah.
What else do you speak?
I speak Russian, Ukrainian.
Of course,
Polish,
Russian. Silly me, yeah. And
Russian,
Polish.
Ukrainian, English, Polish, and I dabble a bit in French.
Well, don't we all? Yeah.
Me too. Me too. GCSE French.
Same here, actually. Yeah.
But I would argue that you're saying that like this divorce brings unhappiness, but I
yes,
think
for
there's
children particularly.
But I would argue that the people in that divorce who have started it, they are much happier after the divorce.
The children are not particularly happy. Believe me.
But then there's that argument as well through the American Pediatric Institute of Statistics has argued that actually destructive marriages who really want to be divorced are worse for their well-being.
No, I'm not saying that people should stay together forever 100% of the time. I'm just saying that it's becoming ever more easier. Marriages are becoming less and less stable and long-lasting. I don't know why you're not getting one. Oh, wonderful. You're getting one as well.
They can hit me.
Slight imbalance. But the other thing is liberalism leads to tyranny.
Tyranny of who?
Yes.
Sorry.
Tyranny
Okay.
of who?
Well, the population. Those who disagree with liberal principles, look at the last 10 years, the rise of wokeism, where cancel culture, attacks on people who disagree with the latest trans narrative or whatever it may be, are often, they can be fired, they can be cancelled, they can be even prosecuted and by the police for an offensive tweet. And this is a real problem, that liberalism is not just this benign thing. It can be weaponized and become a tyranny, and that's why we see a reaction against it in some parts of the world now.
And I agree. that
you do?
sometimes those
Okay.
liberal values are taken against the actual purpose of liberalism. So I think that in the UK, we are struggling a bit in terms of freedom of speech. But I would argue that having like this thing we have here and being able to talk about that is a prime freedom of speech. And it's important for the liberals to actually discuss what is freedom of speech and what is hate speech and what is dangerous speech.
Yeah.
Because calling for violence is a very interesting and important topic. It's like, where is speech harmful and when is something free speech? And that's where I come back to this consent, like, or at least like temporary consensus or agreement for now to see how that works for society, and like this kind of pragmatism and utilitarianism, like what is good for us in society. But I would argue that in terms of cancel culture, when you say like, so for example, somebody says something racist or transphobic or whatever, I think it's perfectly okay for a specific corporation or group of people to say we don't want to be associated with that person or not allow them on that platform. It's private. Like no one has the. I don't have a single right to be on someone's podcast or platform if they don't want to invite me, and that's okay. But I can, through agency and personal beliefs, start my own movement or my own thing. And whether people agree with me is their choice. But I have the right to say those things. And I think in terms of right now...
But liberalism is all one way. Liberalism only works if you're advocating so-called liberal values. If you're advocating conservative values, or other values than conservative, then liberalism gets very, very wary and sometimes stop those views because it believes in only those liberal, so-called liberal values that are supporting certain secular liberal ideologies. It's not really value free. It is highly loaded to a certain worldview that it insists in a very illiberal way that everyone else must accept. So in other words, to be happy in a liberal democracy, you've got to be a liberal. You can't be anything else. And this is the paradox or the incoherence of liberalism. Do you not see that?
I would argue, like, when you say, like, when you're, for example, a conservative, that the liberals go against you.
Yeah.
And what the liberals do is they argue against you, but...
Well, they cancel you.
But what
Normally.
is cancelling? What is cancelling?
Well, okay, so you can lose your job, you can find the police knocking at your door, you can be on social media. I've seen this on Facebook, I've seen this on LinkedIn. They can actually, the moderators who never reveal who they are, can actually take down your post and warn you about their community standards because you're expressing a conservative view.
But that is a private platform, and those owners and people,
They're the public platforms. They're public.
But they're owned by someone, and that's their
but you
platform.
see, they're privately owned public platforms.
What is a public platform?
Well, yeah, you see that this is semantics now because we live in a capitalist society where virtual. So you know, it's like Facebook says, "Well, we're private," but when it becomes a virtual functioning monopoly globally, it's no longer just a private thing like a little shop. It is a massive public global presence. And when it cancels people in the name of liberalism, this is the problem.
But cancelling is simply a group of people deciding we don't want to be associated.
The owners, yeah.
Yeah, well, what's the problem with that? Like,
Because it's not freedom. No, the problem is liberalism would disagree with that, surely.
You have the freedom to say those things. There are many...
No, but I don't. No, but people don't. On the major public platforms that people access, whether it be X or whatever, it's less so now. X has changed because more of a free-for-all. But it's pushed back against these liberal woke ideologies, you see.
I think what we have a problem with in this conversation is the right to freedom of speech and the right to be heard. Those are very different things.
I thought it was the same thing.
No, it's not, because you're able to say whatever you want.
I can do that in my front room, but I can't do it publicly.
No, I mean, you can do it publicly, but people don't necessarily are not necessarily obliged to listen to you. They don't need to.
So they can counsel you.
That's the thing. Is like you're saying this counselling is like completely.
Well, okay, so let's take give Congress on Facebook, notoriously Meta, owned by you know who. Many people have complained, and I've seen it happen. If you put up very often pro-Palestinian opinions, you can have your post taken down, or you can just be taken off the platform entirely.
Because that's the law of the platform.
No. Well, what the rule of the platform is to be anti-Palestinian, is it?
No. They make their rules.
Yeah, but hang on. Remember liberalism here. We're defending liberalism, right? Yeah.
I am defending
We're not defending Zuckerberg. We're defending liberalism here.
I'm defending
right?
the right of an owner who owns a platform to do whatever they want with that platform.
Oh, really? Even when they're serving the public.
Oh, in the
Okay, well, I'm a baker. Okay, a lesbian couple come in and demand that I make a cake celebrating their lesbian wedding. What should I do as a good liberal?
so you have a customer who says they want you to make a lesbian cake.
Yeah.
You,
And I'm a Christian, so I'm not, but so I'm a Muslim, which I am. So what happens then?
I believe that you should have the right to reject that
Right.
order, but I also think that the people should have the right to know that you've rejected that order, and whether they want to do business with you after that
Of course.
is up to them.
No. But so you. Oh, it's interesting. So you come out with a conclusion which is not normally supported by liberals at all. That in fact, someone who wants a gay wedding cake baked by a Muslim / or Christian baker should not have that right.
They do not have the right to your work. They should not be able to compel you to do something you don't want. But also, at the same time, other people should know that you've rejected that.
Well,
and make the decision.
they'll know if they want to tell people. I mean, the owner's not going to broadcast it. They're just going to.
I think that people, like, if you do something like that, for example, like, people should have the right to not want to do business with you if you've rejected that, and that should be because that's part of your business. Because the rules and the laws and the ideas of the business should be part of that. People's choices whether they want to work for you or not.
This whole idea that if it's a private company like Facebook or X, therefore the owners can censor because it's private. I think this made a lot of sense, say, in the 18th century or whatever, when the real public square was literally the public square, literally outside in the town hall or whatever. But now the public square is online. The people don't normally go into Piccadilly Circus, for example, and talk to the public. They tweet about it. The public square is now online. But because of the way the world has changed, we're no longer in the 1850s. We're in a world where this very public service is still technically private. So we're using logic that worked in the 1850s in 2025. Do you see what I'm saying?
I kind of see what you mean. But also, when you talk about these platforms that are online, you never actually experience the full spectrum of it. You experience what the algorithm is showing you. So within that, there is also the technical argument to be made that you can never ever actually hear everything that is said on the platform because it's impossible in terms of like the reach and what is shown to you. So in terms of the algorithm, the kind of idea would be to have a balanced algorithm that is able to show you every single side of the view that people are saying.
Yeah, but it's not happening. It's not happening because Facebook censors certain political views and promotes others. And for me, it's not enough to say, well, it's a privately owned company, because, as I say, we're now in the 21st century, not the 19th century. These are public services, but they had that ownership model, which is still from the past. So we need a new understanding, I think I would recommend, of this, and not just insist on antiquated, we own it, therefore you can't do it.
I mean, I think there's a very important argument to have in terms of like the impact and the responsibility of social media,
Exactly.
of like what it does and what it doesn't do.
Exactly.
But I definitely believe that in terms of like these platforms, they should have the right to self-govern and have
And censor at will.
what they want to censor.
See, this is where your liberal principles stop at the door of social media, which I think is arbitrary. Because we live in a world where these aren't purely private companies like my tea shop in the corner of the street. These companies facilitate and serve literally billions of people, and they got or LinkedIn, and yet they're operating according to that logic like little private companies where, we have a right who comes in our front door. No, they're providing a global public service. We need to update the logic of that argument and no longer think of in the 19th century, in my view.
Also, in that sense, when you have that, for example, if there was a situation where, for example, something like X or Facebook, there was an algorithm that was like, or law said, you cannot actually control what is being said on that. Does the company actually have control of that service? And in that sense, is it actually owned by anyone? And but if it's not owned by anyone, is it actually sustained? And what is the incentive of those things? I actually think that the argument I would have in terms of liberalism is for these platforms to have algorithms that allow freedom of speech.
Be nice.
Yeah. And they do, and I think they do.
Well, at the moment they don't. But apart from arguably X to mostly, but Facebook not, Instagram not, because they're owned by the same Meta company, which is ultimately owned by Zionists, who TikTok is now going to be owned by a big shot Zionist as well from the States. So we're anticipating there's going to be a big crackdown on free expression when it comes to certain issues in the Middle East. This is not liberalism. You can't just say I'm a liberal, I support private ownership. it is no longer a private grocery in a Victorian shop. This is a global public service now. We need to update our perception of what's going on. I
But
think.
I also think that if you have a kind of a public platform like this, and you have some control in terms of it, is that you will always have a party that has interest in what is being said on it. So no matter how hard you try, you will have some censorship. But I do think the optimal, in terms of my liberalism, we should strive for the most clear, open, and constructive conversation on all these platforms. How we reach it is very difficult, because no matter who you have in terms of control of the algorithm, what it shows, will have power to funnel it. And unless it's completely open source somehow. and
Well,
people
but the thing is, the American Constitution was it the First Amendment about your right to free speech and all that. It doesn't apply because if it's a private company, as you put it. But these are models from like 1766, not 2025.
It's
It's a
something
different world
that's
now.
privately owned public. How can something be
It can
privately-
be, but it is in fact de facto, if not de jure. In reality, it is obviously because anyone can have access to it just standing here in the park.
How would, what is your solution to the issue?
Well, I would like measures to stop censoring these voices because we need to hear Palestinian voices because they're the people who are being genocided and oppressed by it. But unfortunately, the company is run by those who it's what the opposing party. That's the problem.
I actually agree.
Yeah.
I
You're a
think-
liberal. You should really. Yeah.
of course. Yeah. I would support a broader range of voices. But I have a question for you. Do you have an argument towards like what is free speech and what is hate speech?
Well, the word hate speech is often used by people, perhaps insincerely, against those who criticize certain trans attitudes or LGBT. It's nothing to do with hate. It's to do with a principled understanding, a different understanding of human relationships. So it's a way to undermine and discredit someone rather than engage in serious argument. The whole language of hate speech. There are examples of hate speech, but usually it's weaponized by the woke industry to delegitimize and undermine opposition to its principles.
Do you think someone should be able to say, let's gather at this place at this time and, for example, harm someone, kill someone? Do you think there should be?
Well, no, but no one's ever arguing that. That's never an example in practice.
I mean, you
It-
can have calls for terrorism, calls for murder.
No, what is it? More example. So if I believe that, what is a woman? A woman is a biological female. That, I've heard said, is hate speech. No, it's not hate speech. It's actually, you've done biochemistry. It's actually a biological fact. And yet even biological facts can be attacked as hate speech by this woke ideology. That's the craziness of this.
Sex and gender are very different things in terms of human biology.
So what is a woman?
In terms of my understanding, or
No, I'm talking the science.
science, a female, the
Yes.
sex, is a person who's, we describe a female as someone who's born with two X chromosomes.
Fine, absolutely.
But in terms of society,
I agree. You're absolutely right. No, it's a biological female. So if I said I'm just decided I'm a female, you would respond, well, scientifically you're not. You're still a male. And that's true.
But you can undergo changes, or even if you
No,
didn't do
I
anything-
can't undergo changes. Can I change my DNA?
I mean, not right now, but I hope.
So I
eventually
can't.
it will be. Not right now. Like in terms of DNA, but DNA is not the only thing.
Yeah,
that
again, your hope is in a future utopian world, isn't it?
The argument I have towards the transgenderism argument is this: if you were to close your eyes, and I would tell you that in a second, a person who is about 5'8" with long blonde hair,
All right.
wearing a pink dress, nail polish, and eyeliner would come up to us, would you say that is very likely a woman?
Of course.
Yes, but that could be someone who
You
is.
said very likely, by the way.
Very
I would always
likely. But
allow
you
the
would-
possibility.
but you would-
It could be
but you-
someone in drag, of course.
Could be, but you would perceive that as a woman, and most people would perceive that as a woman.
Yeah,
A lot of our understanding of what a woman is through these constructs which we have created. There's like, what is a feminine attribute?
You'll go down the Edith Butler path. You know, who Edith Butler is. Yeah.
I know of her, but I'm not familiar with the text.
No, she's the high priestess of all this stuff in California. So I'm trying to ground though what it is to be human in actual reality rather than these fantastic concepts. A male is a biological male who has certain and a few. Our species comes in two forms, male and female.
My understanding.
And the point is, your whole point about hate speech is that to assert that, to state that, I mean, is seen as hate speech
I,
in some
in
quarters.
terms of just to quickly come back to transgenderism,
Yeah.
I think that transgender women are women, but not all women are transgender women. So if you look at it as a Venn diagram, there are subsets.
I understand what you just said.
Yes. So
I don't need to make a diagram. But I think that is, I think transgender is a mental illness, is a psychiatric condition, and our attitude towards them should be, in principle, one of compassion and also treatment for the illness. And that is the kind of the beginning and end of all I have to say, because these are not normal mental attitudes. I've seen people it's serious on TV documentaries, some people who think they're a cat. I mean, I know it sounds weird, who really believe they are, as a woman, who believe that she was an actual cat. I mean, now, bless her, I'm sorry to say she's not. She's like a human being. She can call herself what she likes, but it's a mental illness, I'm afraid. It's not normal. And so a grounded, sober, until 5 minutes ago, universally accepted norm would be to see men and women as distinct, complementary, different, but they're not interchangeable. I can't just say I'm a woman. You can't just say you're a woman.
Well, when we talk about illnesses, we usually describe something that is detrimental to the life quality.
Absolutely.
That is what we describe. But I would argue that people who live those transgender lives actually have more fulfilling lives once they've transitioned, and I'm much happier. I know a lot of lovely transgender women, many of them who are friends with.
I think, well, bless them, but I think they're mentally ill. They may say they're happy, but suicide rates are much higher, breakdown is much higher, depression is much higher, and this is not to do with the way they treat. This is to do with the condition itself.
Are those suicide rates and mental health rates like that because of how they're treated in society?
No, it's not. It's because
you see how they're treated.
No, I've seen the stats. The latest research is this is because the condition itself is unstable. It has a negative effect on personality. It's not normal, and so people
treat them like people treat them horribly.
No,
in terms of the circumstances,
the latest research does not back that up. They can be treated like that, but the condition itself causes pain, psychic problems, and can lead to even worse mental illness and suicide. The condition itself does this, by the way. That's what recent research is showing.
When it's not treated through gender-affirming therapy and HRT is, but the research and the kind of medical data shows us that once people go through transitioning and undergo medical treatment, those kind of issues go down significantly, and it cannot be as a.
It can't be a priori, even without the medical evidence, because these if I think I'm a cat and undergo whatever fur treatment or whatever it is, and I'm happier after that, my disconnect from reality is even greater, and that by definition cannot be. I'm not a whole human being. I'm not integrated because I'm not made that way. We are made in certain ways by our Creator. We're not made to be cats, or if I'm a guy, to be a woman. This goes against our created nature.
Well, I think that even if, like the health argument, even if we stray away from it, I think it is within the right of a person to do what they want with their life. Even if it's something as radical as turning themselves into a cat, no one is responsible for their life other than themselves.
I don't agree. You see, I believe we don't have that freedom in an absolute sense, not in an unqualified sense, that we are owned by another God, because He created us, He owns us, He fashions us. So therefore, we don't have that absolute liberty to do whatever we like with our bodies, like to become cats or women. If we do it, there will be consequences, because we're going against the design. But we don't have that absolute freedom, morally speaking, at all. We're custodians rather than free agents in that sense.
I don't believe that God created us. I firmly believe in the serendipitous creation of life through gravity and the formation of atoms, and then evolution, which leads to me being the way I am today. So I don't believe.
I think it's a Just So story. I don't think it's based on reality at all. Anyway.
Right. Anyway,
it's been an absolute delight talking to you.
It was as well. Thank you very much for the conversation.
It's the first conversation I've had with a Ukrainian, to my knowledge. Although, if they all sound like you, then I could have had conversation with many Ukrainians and not known.
Hopefully, we can have a conversation again at some point. Maybe we can do something else. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. Good.
More life, more freedom, more liberalism to everyone at home. And you don't agree with me? I hope you use your liberal rights to live the other way around, and I hope you're allowed to do that. So freedom for everyone and life to everyone as they choose. Anyway, thank you very much.
Okay. Sorry?
Who do I give this?
So what did you say?
Islamic dance, can you finish it?
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's me.
This YouTube channel, Dawa to Souls, and
Can I help? Like, can I look at it? Like, what's the channel?
I will give you.
Right, so, yeah, talking to this very decent chap who's Ukrainian, who I thought was actually English, but he's half English.
English.
I would say you are half English.
I am fully Ukrainian, no English at all.
Well, I beg to differ. If he walks like a duck, talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, he's a duck.
I'll never be accepted.
Anyways, but
Is it live or is it going to be?
it's not. Is it? I have no idea. So Islamically speaking, yeah. So the idea here is that he's an atheist. So ultimately, he believes in nothing at all, no basis of morality. Obviously, we believe that God created us and that He designed us for a purpose. And men can't just become women. You know, I just can't become a cat because we're not designed this way. We have a responsibility for our Creator to live in a certain way. Otherwise, we're going to harm ourselves. We can't harm God, but we will harm ourselves. So ultimately, that's the difference between what this gentleman was believing. It's interesting. Atheism is not just an ideology; it affects everything, the way you see life, and you can see the harm it does to people. But anyway, so enough from me. Till next time, inshallah. Thank you.